And leadership is lonely. It's a lonely place to be because you can't go home and talk to your spouse about this. You can't go talk to your friends because they don't feel any sympathy. Like this is just a soul searching, who am I? What am I going to do? So the concept of exiting, everybody around you will say you're very successful, but internally you still struggle with this. So our first question with our owners, most owners just want to get the information. What are my choices? Like, what are my different exit options? We basically talk about the 5 major exit options. Most people think I have one. I got to sell my business. And it's not true. You don't have to, because there's an exit of you as an employee where you can own the stock and keep it and get recurring revenue and get what we call mailbox money. Or you can sell the company and stay in as an employee and just take some chips off the table. There's more options available than I have to, but most business owners perceive an exit is I sell my company and I leave. And so our goal is to let them know there's kind of like, when you make a recipe, you've got like 3 areas. Like you've got your meats. Some people like chicken, some shrimp, some beef, different pork, and then you have your vegetables. Some people like different vegetables in theirs. And then there's different sauces, sometimes a little sweeter, sometimes a little spicier. And every exit, you grab a little meat, you grab a little veggie, you grab a little spice, and you make it the way you want it. So the question is, owner, what do you want?
This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Hello. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Happy day to you.
Yeah, thanks. Where are you talking to me from?
San Diego, if you're more specific, Coronado.
Coronado. Okay. Wonderful. Right. What's the weather like today in Coronado?
Well, I would ask for sympathy, but I don't think I'm going to get it. It's like 60, so it's cold for us,
Okay. Yeah.
So, we're getting kind of, it's our blustery winter, right? We have a beautiful blue sky, but it like gets in the 50s during the night and the 60s during the day. So we have to bring our jackets out and our boots because we're not set up for this.
Yeah.
So I'd ask for sympathy, but there's nobody out there that's going to give me, I'm in San Diego and it must be really hard on you guys there.
Right. Oh, that's funny.
My son's out of Boston and he said, Dad, when was the last time when you went for a flight, you looked at the weather? Why would you look at the weather? Why would you look at the weather? Because because sometimes, planes don't fly when it's snowing outside or things. And I'm like, no, never really considered that, son. No, we just go to the airport.
Right.
So, yeah.
Oh, it's all good.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much.
Good. Well, I appreciate you letting me be on here and see what we can do to enjoy some time together.
That's right. So I've done, checked you out on the website and get a sense of your business. You're obviously specialized in helping companies exit with grace and money and peace of mind and all those good things that a business owner wants, right? And
yes.
Is there anything specific, John, that you want to make sure I ask you about today or that you want to talk about?
I think my passion that I think there's so much information about the transaction itself. What's my company worth? How long does it take? What are the steps? That stuff is easy. Our approach is that it's more than a transaction. It's about a transition. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot more to the deal than just the numbers and the tactical steps. I think lawyers and CPAs and estate attorneys and financial planners are really good at the tactical transaction. But the reality is our biggest challenge are the owners themselves and their readiness to truly understand what it's like to get out of their business when selling their business is losing their identity.
Oh boy. Well, that's a great topic to talk about, because the whole identity shift when you are selling a business, it is, and I can't speak from experience, but I have gone through my own identity shift. So I understand how much is involved. It's an energy suck. It is exciting, but it's also terrifying.
It's absolutely. And I mean, you look at Tom Brady today, right? You see him on a video and he just looks like his life is over. He's like, okay, I'm going to retire. And this time I mean it. And I know he means it authentically, but if you look in his eyes and you think about, this is all he knows. This is everything he has done since he was 2 years old. And he's scared about what's next. I mean, what we deal with is fear. We deal with change, and change is scary. And change is hard. And the transaction is hard in itself. And I don't want to minimize that. But where we find most of our efforts are communicating with the owners, understanding that this is more about a transition and what are they going to do next, how they're going to find out what do they fill themselves with in value and purpose. What's going to make you relevant next?
Oh, that's good stuff.
It's hard. It's really hard because the owners are just getting in the cage, street fighting every day, and that's all they know. And so that's really what my passion and our company is really around is understand it's more than a transaction. It's about the transition.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely, I'll have you talk about that. The first question I ask you, John, after I've welcomed listeners and introduced you with some biographical information is, I'm going to ask you, tell us your story of when you got the call to leadership. So I know you built a construction company, you sold it, you've had several iterations of your own career, your own life. So, I believe that we don't just get one call. There may be one ultimate call, which is our life when we're born. That's essentially saying, okay, you're on, right? And we go through different phases, but maybe you could structure that around the work you do now. And then that provides it. And I'm not telling you what to say. I'm just letting you know that is my first question. And then that can lead us into the work that you're doing with OSSO Consulting Group. And you can talk about some of the things you just shared with me. Be candid that a lot of people have their eyes on the transaction. They think about, again, you can paint the picture of what are some common scenarios people come to you with that they're dreaming about. But then there's that darker side of the reality. Well, wow, what I've built in my life is now I'm done. And now what? That's huge. And I think a lot of people are facing their own version of a transition right now because we're coming out of COVID, and that awakened people to a lot of questions about what they're doing with their lives, where they want to be living, what kind of work they want to do. So there's a lot of relevance to, even though you're talking about it within the context of what your company does, I think there's a more universal application that listeners will be able to, cross that bridge and say, wow, I'm facing fear. And you might have some good suggestions about how do we face that without self-destructing? I mean, it sounds so dire, but it's real.
And it doesn't matter how big your company is. For you, it's very relevant to you because this is so many first generation founding entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
This is how they have valued themselves, because people go around and they can say who they are. They can run things through the company. They can take people out. They hire people. They fire people. Customers appreciate them. Like what would they do it for? What would they love to do? Right. And so what am I going to do now when I don't? And that's why so many of them don't want to own the company if they're not working in it.
Yeah.
Because they think that ownership and exit is an ownership and an employee. And our approach is there are many different ways to exit, and you don't have to leave. Your exit can be that you leave the company, but you can still own it. It's okay. You don't have to automatically walk out. You
Okay.
can transition yourself where you're working less or don't work at all, or you come in once a month, or you work a couple of, because you just get to do what you want to do. That's still an exit. It's okay to own a company that you don't work in every day, 60 hours a week, 51 weeks a year. It's okay. And
I love that message.
You just don't think of it, right? And so bringing all this stuff up in real and letting them know they're normal. I think when I sold my company, and we've been working with these companies for owners for now 17 years, I think of all of it as a business owner and as an entrepreneur myself, I just didn't know. I didn't know the personal side. I always thought it was like selling my car or selling a boat or selling my house. It's just an asset. Sell it. Well, it is absolutely not that. Maybe for some people, but not for founders, not for G1, Generation 1 creative entrepreneurs. It's more than that to them. It's not an asset. It's a life.
Yes.
So
team, you hear I'm talking with John Ovrom from Exit Consulting Group today, and you can tell that John is extremely passionate about helping business owners make that transition from day-to-day operations, running a company, being in charge, doing all these things, to exiting. And it's something that many people are facing as we head deeper into the 21st century. We're talking about legacy companies that have maybe 30, 40, even 50 years old. And he is, like I said, he is one of the co-founders of Exit Consulting Group. He is coming to us today from the beautiful state of California, specifically Coronado, outside of San Diego. And he's going to take us inside what exiting your company means. And I want you to think about today, if you aren't in a position where you're a company owner, think about some of the more universal applications that exiting. It could be a career. It could be becoming an empty nester. It could be you're moving to another part of the country or the world. Because I think some of the things he's going to share with us today are relevant to the human experience when we face a big change in our lives. So, John, before we get into the nuts and bolts specifically of your business, I'd love to have guests set the stage.
Sure.
And tell us your story about when you got the call to leadership to do the work you're doing now with Exit Consulting Group. What were some of the factors and variables in your life that led you to form this company, and why are you so passionate about this kind of work?
Well, thank you very much. There are people I really always struggled with, how did I end up being an entrepreneur? Because I think it's truly a personality. I think there are people that are musicians that hear the music, and there are military people that want to join the military, or teachers that are passionate about teaching, or anybody that wants to follow their passion, and they just have that natural. For me, I found business and the business relationships very exciting. And I've always loved being in business. And I'm very different than my brother and my sister. My kids are very different than I. And it's really interesting where I don't know why I am. I just have learned now over all the years that I am an entrepreneur. And that is what I love to do. So I followed my passion. And that's what I've always been told to do, is follow your passion. I ended up going to get an accounting degree only because when I was going to college, I said I wanted to go in my own company. I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to be in charge of my own destiny. People said, learn your numbers. Learn your numbers, because you need to understand the language of business. And to me, I went, all right, that makes sense.
Sure.
I'll go do it, right? And so I learned accounting just as a language, because I wanted to go, if I'm in San Diego and I want to learn Spanish, I go down to Mexico, and I would embrace myself in Mexico and learn Spanish. If I'm in business, I need to embrace myself in that. So I learned the language of numbers. But in the end, what I really learned is business is about relationships. That's what it really is. It's not about numbers. It's really about relationships.
It absolutely is. So you're you formed a company. You ran a custom home remodeling company along with other construction-based companies for 14 years. You did that with your dad and your cousin, and then you guys sold the company. And at that point, you realized that having a service provider who can step into the business and develop a strategic exit plan, manage the transition, was something that not only would you enjoy doing, but you could see there was a need for it, right?
I was very disappointed in the professional services around people selling their company and exiting. It was always about the transaction. It was my lawyer telling me I need to do this, or my CPA telling me I need to do that, or my financial planner telling me I can do this, or my broker saying we can list it for that. But they didn't actually understand that I built this. Like my name's on the building, my name's on the trucks. I remember when I bought that printer. I remember when we did the tape drives, right? Because I'm going to date myself here, right? When we would have the backups, like I remember the phone system that I had to decide. Like all of this I created. This is a child to me. And you guys make it sound like this is just a business. And although mentally I know that, I didn't know emotionally how I was going through that. And it was just too much. I was trying to run a company. I was trying to be a dad. I was still volunteering for Little League, right? I'm still working at the Rotary for volunteerism. I'm trustee at a church. Like I'm busy. The concept of me and what's important to me personally was never really brought up as a relevant fact. It was more like this is like selling your house. Just go sell your business. And I assumed that, and it is not that way. It's just not.
Yeah. No, it's not. And you were telling me a little bit about that. So why don't you dive into the difference between a transaction and a transition, specifically when it comes to selling a company?
Sure. I mean, what we have found is that the biggest challenge in an owner designing their exit is like they perceive an exit as death. Like I have to leave. And they see this because they fear change. They fear the idea of what am I going to do with my life out of this business? I'm going to lose my identity. They don't say that out loud, but when you dive into it, our biggest fear that we hear from our owners is I don't feel relevant anymore. And one of my and my business, this is all I know. You can't have LeBron James walk off the basketball court. You can't have Tom Brady, except today he just did, choose to walk off the fields, right? When you are successful and business is going well and you have a fan base and you're street fighting every day, and this is all you know. I mean, and this is all I know. I'm not proud of myself, but I don't take a lot of vacations. And I'm trying to take some more vacation. And my staff said, John, you're going to go take a week, go ski, don't check your emails. And I'm like, I don't know. And my clients need me, and they said, John, your clients don't need you. We got them. You actually need your clients.
Yeah.
What? And I thought about it and I was like, you're right. Because I love what I do and I can help people, I feel good. I enjoy it. And when you love what you do, why do you want to leave? Because someone said you're 65? Because someone said you had enough money? Does someone say you're supposed to travel more? Because why? I love it. But it's a very emotional process. And our biggest challenge to get an owner to exit is to understand and be aware of that so they can start processing what's next in their life.
Okay, so let's put us into a common scenario for you. Client comes to you and says,
Sure.
I'm ready, John and your team, I'm ready to sell. I'm ready to exit my business.
Sure.
And the transaction part, like you were saying, is pretty cut and dry.
Mm-hmm.
Your superpower, I'm getting the impression, is to really address the emotional side, to help guide them cross that bridge between being the person, whether it's a man or a woman, the person always on, to not being that anymore. What are some of is there a conversation that you typically have with somebody, or is there like a bullet list of things that you bring up and say, this is what you need to look out for, be prepared for this because it's coming? and without, then having to talk them down, right? Because they're freaking out. Because you're right. They're afraid.
They are. And leadership is lonely. It's a lonely place to be because you can't go home and talk to your spouse about this. You can't go talk to your friends because they don't feel any sympathy. Like this is just a soul searching, who am I? What am I going to do? So the concept of exiting, everybody around you will say you're very successful, but internally you still struggle with this. So our first question with our owners, most owners just want to get the information. What are my choices? Like, what are my different exit options? We basically talk about the 5 major exit options. Most people think I have one. I got to sell my business. And it's not true. You don't have to, because there's an exit of you as an employee where you can own the stock and keep it and get recurring revenue and get what we call mailbox money. Or you can sell the company and stay in as an employee and just take some chips off the table. There's more options available than I have to, but most business owners perceive an exit is I sell my company and I leave. And so our goal is to let them know there's kind of like, when you make a recipe, you've got like 3 areas. Like you've got your meats. Some people like chicken, some shrimp, some beef, different pork, and then you have your vegetables. Some people like different vegetables in theirs. And then there's different sauces, sometimes a little sweeter, sometimes a little spicier. And every exit, you grab a little meat, you grab a little veggie, you grab a little spice, and you make it the way you want it. So the question is, owner, what do you want? Do you want to hand it to your kid? Do you want to sell it to somebody? Do you want to just liquidate it? Liquidating is simple. It's fine. It is an exit. You can also, the great one, and as scary as it sounds, they want to die at their desk. That is an exit. That's okay. Just own it. Own it that I love what I do and I want to die at my desk. And I go, great. All I need you to do then, if that is your exit, is who is the best person to work out the exiting of your company? Is it going to be you? Is it going to be your widow? Is it going to be your children? Or is it going to be the state? Which one do you think is best? I think it's you. So why don't we not put it on your widow or your children? Because everybody exits on their foot or in a box. Everyone's going to leave. I don't have to sell you on exiting. So I'm just saying, plan for it. Get life insurance. Get like $1 million life insurance. So when you die, the company gets $1 million. We can hire a CEO. We can clean the company up. We can pay the service providers to get your company ready for a transaction. So your widow doesn't have to and your children don't have to. And we have some money to make it fun out because you've never wanted to make the effort. It's okay. Just own it. I'm totally good with liquidating. I'm totally good with you giving it to your kid or kids. I'm totally good with you selling it to a key employee or having your partner buy you out or take it to market or hire a CEO and just take it as recurring revenue. There are a lot of options, but why do you want to get out? That's our number. What's your win?
Okay, talk about that. There are obviously several different scenarios that I think are not common knowledge. And thank you for illuminating what different options might look like. Is there one that more people choose than any other in the experience you've had with Exit Consulting Group?
I would tell you so as it's funny, right? So, you try to get into exit planning and exit strategy, and I thought that was going to be the plan. But in reality, business owners don't like to plan. They just, so I had to change it from exit planning to exit consulting because that was all they're only ready right now. They finally decided. They rarely, so when you ask an owner, how far out are you from an exit? Guess how many years out the typical answer would be when we meet with them or they're being referred to us. How many years out?
I would say they were like, I wanted this done yesterday.
I have 2 choices. I need to sell it now, so that's in a year, or I'm 5 years out. There's nowhere in between.
It's 1 year or 5 years. Oh, now which equals 1 year. Okay.
Yep. Or 5 because it's far enough that I don't have to do anything yet, but it's close enough that I can kind of hold on to it. Like, I'm thinking about it. And then every year they're 5 more years out. Right.
Interesting.
So, isn't that right? So that's, so our goal is we have to find out what's the triggering event for your exit, because no one likes change. People go to church and sit in the same pew spot, right?
Yep.
People go to the one restaurant and they order the same food, and that's why they go that. People don't like change, and we're asking them to change their life. And so what's the triggering event? Because if we can find buyers, we can sell the company. That's fine, but not if you're going to be the problem. Right?
Right.
So
right.
we have two triggering events: out of convenience or out of cause.
Right? And what are those? What are some examples? What's one example of out of convenience, and then what's one out of cause?
So convenience is going to be like, I'm just tired. I'm done. I just feel like, I'm the business is outgrowing me, and I just think it's time. I'm turning 65. Well, I've always thought 65 was a good time to retire, so I think it's time. It doesn't really matter if they're 62, 65, 67, but in their mind, they're kind of like, I don't know, I just think it's about time.
Sure.
So cause is going to be death, right?
Yep.
Death of a family, not even their death. I mean, it can be, but family members, divorce can be them, or a divorce with their partner, because sometimes we deal with partnership divorce, right?
Sure.
Health issues, financially, they're losing money and they just don't want to keep putting money into it.
Yeah.
The economy, as you might imagine, COVID definitely
Oh, yeah.
triggered a lot of exits. And so, if it's out of cause, usually that event requires someone to change. People don't like to change, but if, you get married, you're going to have to change, right? You're going to have a child, it's going to change. You're going to have a death, you're going to change. So there are things that are triggering that out of cause. We can help them through the exit because they're more willing to accept, because they don't feel like it's a choice. The convenience, which is, I don't know, I want to take some chips off the table. I want to take some more time. I'm just tired. All of those, that doesn't necessarily mean they're emotionally ready to leave. They'll use price as a reason to say, this isn't right. Like, I want more. I just met a guy 2 days ago, and we told the value of his company was $5 to 6 million. He goes, well, I want 10. And I said, great. Market's still market. So what are we going to do about building a value and an exit plan to get you to 10 million? I mean, I want to run a marathon and, in a year with 8-minute miles. That doesn't mean I'm doing anything about it. I mean, you can want all you want. Let's set the plan. I love the target. Let's build the plan. And that's what we do on exit consulting, is find out what your win is. Is it a certain amount of money that you need? Is it that you just want your kids to have it and you want to help transition over to them and set them up for success? Is it that your partner's going to buy you out because you're 10 years older than your partner and you're ready to go and they're not? We're going to help you through that, right? We can take you out to market or someone brought you an offer and you're like, I just don't even know if this is a fair price.
Sure.
It's just education. 80% of our work is educating owners of this time in this process, because it's only typically once in a lifetime and there's really very little help out there.
It sounds like it. And certainly your own experience speaks to that, that you just were met with a very disappointing experience overall when you went to sell your company. And I find I'm not surprised that the majority of your time is spent educating people about the different options available to them that they weren't even aware of. And then B, it's almost like you become a therapist, like you've got to get into their headspace, into their heart space, and really dig around to find out what is driving this decision. And then the whole reality check about, I think from other conversations I've had over the years on this podcast, people tend to overvalue what they've built. They think it's worth way more than the market will take. And so I'm curious, when you come back at somebody with that answer, is that when they just kind of throw their chair back and go, well, forget about that. I'll find something else. I mean, is it the defensive because it feels insulting, or is it more of like, oh, wow, I had no idea that the market wouldn't bear what I think this is worth?
Just about every parent thinks their child is the greatest ever. And I will tell you, as a baseball coach, as little league and a soccer coach with my boys, let me tell you, your kids are not that good. Okay? They're not going to college, okay, at under 8 soccer because they can dribble the ball. Okay. So again, the business itself, we have to tell them it's a child. We are trying to raise this child. And this is the difference between an owner operated and a professionally run company. Most businesses are owner operated where it is a lifestyle business. They enjoy what they're doing. They love what they do. You do. I do. I love what I do. And I'm doing this, but am I actually building a business, this child who's going to grow up without me and go out and meet friends and then go get married, go to college, go get married, have kids and grab their own life without me? And I just get to be the parent? Or am I going to be sitting at that chain link fence, with my fingers in it, crying because my preschooler is going to school for the first time and then abandoning me. And, I'm the man and I'm, king of this castle and this is my company and everyone reports to me. And I'm just going to be a helicopter parent and I'm going to keep the company in a place that I can always be that parent.
Wow. That is a beautiful picture you just painted about reality for some.
Yeah. And so we can't sell a company if you're the company.
Right.
That is not a company. That is a lifestyle. That is a business. Sure, you might have customers. Sure, you might have, but it doesn't mean it's a company on a standalone. So if you want to sell your company, you actually have to set the company up that is not about you. It doesn't have your name on the truck and it doesn't have your name on the building. And you're not on every video on your website. And it's not all about me. It's all about the company. It's all about the process. It's all about your people. And it's a different mindset if you want to turn into a parent that has healthy children that are going to go live their own. My kids, we're San Diego, always been in San Diego. And my wife and I had a conversation and we told our kids when they're going to college, they have to leave California.
Oh, why is that?
And our friends are like, no, you don't want to do that. You want to keep them in San Diego because then they might fall in love and marry somebody and then never come back. And I said, my job as a parent is to let them know that, Coronado, San Diego, and California are a unique place in this country and in this world. They need to go see something different. If it's not my job to keep them here, my job is to show them more opportunity. So one went to Boston College and one went to Bucknell in Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Who knew, right? But they were like, oh, don't you miss? I go, I do miss them, but I'm also their parent and I'm supposed to raise them into adults on their own.
Right.
I mean, my love for them isn't because I see them every once a week in San Diego. My love for them is I'm trying to make you an adult and be productive and live your own life, whatever that happiness is for you. And if you can take that model into your business and teach this company to grow up and your managers to manage and your people to embrace this child and go, here's where we're going. And they become the business and you become less relevant in the business, letting go doesn't become because you're more of a proud parent. You get off the field and get into the owner's box. It's okay. You don't have to be on the field. You were a player, then you're a coach, then you're the head coach. Get in the owner's box, let the coaches coach and let the players play.
Man.
That's called business. Otherwise, it's just a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's halftime here at the Play Your Position podcast, and we've got ourselves a great game. While you're up grabbing another snack and topping off your favorite beverage, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss another play. PYP is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever great podcasts can be found. Now, let's get back to the game.
Oh, John, you could have a side hustle here about helping parents because, boy, there's a new show on television now that I've seen advertised. It's a parenting show. Which style is best? And there's 12 different styles. And I'm like, wow, have we come to this? Has it really come to this as a nation that because people are just so confused and because information is at our fingertips and there's so much out there, our brains can't filter and make good decisions. So we just latch on to whatever. But I'll tell you, my kids are grown and gone. And I always, part of my role as a mom, as a parent, was to do exactly what you just described. Is these are two individual humans that get to make choices. Now, I raised my kids in the state of Oregon, and both of them stayed. They both chose colleges in Oregon, but they could have gone wherever. We made that option available. They wanted to stay, and that was fine. But their lives are independent. And my parents raised me and my brother that way. My mom told me just the other day, she said, your father and I agreed a long time ago, we weren't going to move to be by our children. And my brother ended up staying. I grew up outside of New York City on Long Island. My brother ended up staying locally, but I left. I left Long Island for the Pacific Northwest, and I had a whole life out there, and to your point, a business is no different. Now, there's nothing wrong with a lifestyle business. Certainly, that's not what you're saying at all. You're just differentiating between a company that can be sold and a business that is wrapped up in you on the daily. Very different kinds of approaches.
Liquidation is an option. Liquidation is because I had an owner in here who's been doing this for 40 years. And I just said, I can't, you have one client that's 70% of your business, and you're the relationship with them. You have done no effort in building a management team behind you. You just have worker bees working for you. Yes, you're profitable, but everything is in your brain. I don't have anything to sell. My advice to you is collect your receivables, collect your work until you're done. You've got plenty of money. You've sucked money out of the company for a while and you've got your reserves. Great. Then just shut it down and be happy. And I told him, I said, if you've lived the life you wanted to live, you married, you have kids, you're healthy, your parents are good where they are, your kids are good. Why does it matter if you get a liquidity event to define success? To me, you're already successful. Many employees work their whole life and don't have a liquidity event, and they live happily ever after. Why do you, business owner, feel like if I just close my doors, I've failed? You haven't. You've lived your life. You have created and built family and wealth around you to live the life that you wanted to live. That's called the win. Shut it down. It's okay. That's called an exit. But they just emotionally, it's like, I need to get something. And I'm like, it's not worth the effort. You've never invested in making this company something you could succeed. If you want to hand it to your kid, great. But that's why an exit, there is no right exit. There is no exit for anybody walking in the door that we say, here you go, here's the right formula.
Right. There's no one blueprint.
The win. No. Yeah. You can't, there's some rules on how you're supposed to raise your kids, but we can tell there's a variety of ways of doing it, right? Right. And it is similar. I would say the most traditional pattern right now, I'm dealing with traditionally kind of 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds right now.
Okay.
So
different generation.
It's a different generation, right? So they're not involved in the technology side of things. They are boots on the ground, just basically outworked everybody and have the tenacity and the leadership drive to say, follow me. They didn't sit around and say, I'm going to make an app and connect two people. They got on the ground and said, we're going to do this, and they will make the business work because they have to, because that's what you do. And for them, it's more of like, a kingdom approach, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm king. It's a little easier when you have two partners. So like if you and I are partners and I'm more sales and you're more ops, right? Or you're more finance and I'm more, customer relationship and so our yin yang has made our company really strong, and you and I have learned to work together. An exit between that is easier because neither of you are king. I haven't been king and you haven't been king. We're just together. We believe that working together is best. So the concept of leaving is more open than a single owner operator that has this wagon wheel management where they are the leader and they're in the middle and everyone reports to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So as a leader in this space and just as a leader in general, you're a leader in your family and your community. Yep. what if you were in a room, John, with some younger business owners who are looking ahead to the next 20, 30 years of building something. And you and I both know the world is different today than it was when some of these 60 and 70-year-olds you're dealing with now built their companies because of technology, because of the internet, because of apps and the smartphone and so forth and so on. What are some, like maybe 2 or 3 universal truths that you have distilled about building to exit that you could impart to them, that you would say, if you take nothing else away from what I say today, please take these away?
In regards to an exit, so I would say the number one mantra that I am trying to get out is you need to understand it's not a transaction, it's a transition. Like, you have to understand this is not selling a car or selling your house. And that means if you acknowledge that, then you need to process what it means to you individually and allow yourself to go through that process. This is not something, it's going to take a little while. This isn't something you're going to wake up one day and go, I see the light and I'm ready to go. Mostly it's, I drop the microphone, I'm done, I'm out of here. Just sell it. There's no transition to it. It's just a transaction. Just get it done.
Yeah.
And if you can understand and build your business, the number 2 would be is that your business is a child.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about you. I don't care if the company's got your name on it. Make the business about the business itself, the brand, its product, its service, its culture. It's about that. You're just the leader of that. It's not you. And if a business owner can shift their mindset, and it's super hard. So we're going to hop into generation 1, generation 2, and generation G1. Generation 1s are typically the entrepreneurial street fighting cowboys, right? They take the risk. They're willing to do the time. They've usually had a little rougher childhood, or they have a chip on their shoulder they're trying to prove, or they've always wanted to make a ton of money and no one's going to tell them. And they're really driving types of personalities, and those captain type personalities are very good for G1s because you have to get up every day, because leadership requires you to get up even though you don't want to.
True story.
And so but the G2, so once you've figured out how to stabilize this company, and once you start hiring enough people, and then you pass it to your kids, or someone buys your company and they're the next generation, that business, those guys and those owners have a different mindset. They're more about scale. They're more about managing the people. They don't have to street fight every day to see if they're going to get rent paid. They don't have to go home to their wife like I did and said, hey, we're not going to be able to pay our mortgage. We're going to have to try to put it on our credit card or do something because they didn't get paid by that client who said that they were going to do so. And you look at your wife and you look at you're going, these are my choices I've made as an entrepreneur, and I'm sorry, but I will do everything I can to keep this thing going, and I will keep driving. They don't have that. They haven't had that problem. They have a business that they're going, hey, this is going well, but the business owner was the problem. Let's get them out of the way, and then we're going to scale this out. So G2s generally have a scaling model, and they're just a different manager type of personality. So for them to get out, it's usually a little easier because they weren't the founders.
Got it. Interesting.
By G3, if you pass this business to your 3rd generation of your children, they don't care. It's all about money. It's all about money for them because, granddad, he worked hard. That's fine. That was the 20s, right? And then dad worked hard. Well, that was the 60s, right? Now we have it, and now it's the 2000s, and it's just a difference. So they don't have the same emotional, what am I going to do about my identity?
No, they don't.
So the generational, knowing if you're dealing with a founder, G1, G2, or G3, is an easier process for some, but just acknowledging that you have to be aware that this is much more than a transaction.
Yeah, that you have said that several times today, and I think it's worth hearing because it's a transaction is easier to comprehend. It's very cut and dry. It's more mechanical. It's more of a math problem on paper, right? Point one to point two to point three and so forth. And here's who's involved. The transition that you're talking about, that's harder because it's involving, we talked about this in the pre-chat, it's involving an identity shift. Have you, John, experienced an identity shift? And if so, what was the identity you had and what was the one that you emerged into?
I am in the process of one right now.
Oh, you are? Okay.
So I am exiting my company. I've been in the process. It's a 10-year exit. I'm 6 years in. And as part of the exit, now to define an exit for me is I want to get out of being responsible for the company because we're service-based. And this is most of our business came from all the work that I did, who I did. And as I bring people in, it was about me. That's kind of like attorneys, CPAs, financial planners, kind of all that service. And I wanted exit consulting to be its own child. So I needed to find some more partners to come in. And so I brought more partners in and then in passing all of these relationships. And that's really hard because I've spent 15, 18 years building relationships and I'm passing them to somebody else and I'm hoping they don't screw them up. And as a G1, trust is an issue. I have control issues. I have trust issues because I've been screwed over so many times by people, by employees. I feel like employees are always going to leave me because they have my whole life. When they're done with me and they don't have it. So how am I going to pass all of this over, all of my knowledge, all of my relationships and trust that this company can go on its own? Like, how am I going to let my kid grow up if I'm not there? Well, you know what? You got to let them make mistakes. It's okay. And so as I raised my boys and I'm working with the team is, the challenge about leadership and finding someone who's willing to own up and take that leadership role. It's hard to find people that want to do that because what I told my boys is if you to be a leader, you have to be able to risk failure. If you're not willing to risk failure and you're not willing to get knocked down and pick yourself up, then you're always going to stay in your safe place. And that is not what good leaders do. You need to feel confident enough that one, I told him, I've never failed. I have made an enormous amount of mistakes. I have lost millions of dollars based on my choice, but I don't consider those failures. I consider those lessons. So I've either succeeded or I've learned. I've never considered them a failure.
Yes. That's such a great attitude.
Yeah. And you got to have it. But how do you find someone? So in my transition in my own personal, where you're asking in my personal, I'm transitioning the company where the clients aren't mine. And that's where I get so much value is helping people. But I can't just like LeBron James playing basketball or Tom Brady, he gets his value out of playing football. But at some point, if you ever want to move out of it, sure, I love my kids. I want them all the time. But at some point, they want to hang out with their friends. And eventually they go to college. Eventually they move away. That doesn't mean I don't love them. It just means I have to find something else that fills that because what I love, I've always loved being with my kids. And so they move away because that's what we've taught them and trained them and built them. Now what am I going to do? Oh, that's part of this transitional challenge. I am helping business owners personally as I am experiencing it personally. It's like I'm an alcoholic at a bar, I'm a bartender who's an alcoholic, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a recovering entrepreneur, and I'm out there helping other entrepreneurs. Going, okay, guys, it's okay. There's some steps to this.
Yeah.
Trying to help them. I'm like someone who's been through a divorce, and I'm trying to help people that are going through divorce. I've sold the companies. I've seen somebody help you understand what you're going to go through, and I'm going through it too. And it's great. It's authentic.
It is. It is because you're not just somebody who hung a shingle out and said you do this. You are experiencing it. You are boots on the ground. You are facing daily the highs and lows of what a transition like this entails. And you said something interesting about people. I was just made aware of something very interesting that one of the needs that humans have is, and it doesn't matter where you live or where what your age, we all have this need. We have a need for certainty. We want safety and security, right? But at the same time, we also have a need for uncertainty and novelty, which requires risk, which requires stepping outside of what's familiar. And that tension, that push and pull, and learning how to say what you've said several times today, which is, it's okay. It's okay that right now I'm feeling a bit rattled. It's okay right now that I'm feeling lost. It's okay that right now I'm actually feeling strong and I made the right decision. And then maybe 10 minutes later, that subconscious comes around and says, what do you mean you made the right decision, you idiot? This is all you know, right? I mean, this is real. It's real life.
And it's not right. My opinion of your exit, I don't have an opinion. It's your exit. I mean, I can help you through it, but it's only good for you. It doesn't work for the person next door to you, but it's the same way as parenting. I can give you advice about how to raise parents, but my kids are raised the way that my wife and I thought we should be raised. But I didn't know. I'm not a CEO. I call myself a CEO because I own the company, but I am not a CEO.
Right.
Right. So how many of those business owners are out there saying, well, I'm a CEO, and you know what? You're not. You're a business owner and you're awesome. But
oh my gosh, there was for a while. I mean, for a while I called myself a CEO because I was there was this, I guess, a movement, if you will, with the onset of being an online business owner and all this kind of stuff, where that lots of people were shouting from the rooftops, own that you're a CEO. And I'm sitting around going, I'm not a CEO. I'm a creative. I'm I'm a podcast host. I'm an author. I'm a poet. I do workshops. I'm a service provider. But a CEO is somebody like in charge of a big company or even a medium-sized company or even a small business, but it's a very specific role. That is not the role I play.
Right. It's running a professional company is what a CEO does.
Yeah.
And most business owners are not running a professionally run company.
No.
Most of us are service providers. Most of us are offering multiple things. Sometimes you even are manufacturing and production. But if you're in construction, you could be a $50 million revenue construction company. That doesn't make you a CEO. If you're the one out there doing all this stuff, you're just the senior project manager. You're also the project engineer. You're also the trash picker upper. You're also go get the water. You're also IRS auditor. Like, I mean, that's not a CEO.
No,
that's not what So it's to help business owners really understand that it's okay that we need to give them a safe place to say it's okay. It's not what you think. It is a process. You're going to go through emotions. And those emotions are going to be in a safe place because we work with you all the time. I just had a client meltdown today where she's got a good offer. It's now time to pee or get off the pot, right? Like, do you want to take it or not? And she's like, yeah, but, and I said, I just want you to know we're always on your side. Like, we're always here. Like, we're your Sherpa. Every time we climb to the top of a mountain, we're going to tell you stop here because we got another mountain behind it. We're just accepting the offer. Then we got to go through due diligence. Then we got to go through legal. Then we got to go through employees and transition. Like, there are many hills along this path, and it's okay to be scared and be fearful. We've done this hike hundreds of times. We'll tell you when to take a break and just give her space and give owner space the time and availability to say, yeah, but. And it's like, yeah, you're normal. Mm-hmm. Really? Yes, you're very normal. It's okay.
It is okay. Well, John, for people who'd like to learn more about you and your company's services, where do you hang out online?
Well, thank you. We our website is probably our best conduit. It's I was about to date myself, Mary Lou. I was about to start with www. That's funny. exitconsultinggroup.com is our best way to connect.
Wonderful. So team, a link to John's show notes page will be, a link to John's website, Exit Consulting Group, will be on his show notes page at pyppodcast.com. And before we wrap things up officially, John, could you share with us a couple of books that have been go-tos for you over the years, or maybe just recently on your own leadership journey?
One right now. I'm trying to remember the title, and it's written by a Navy SEAL, and it's leadership by. Oh darn it! It's I have a tendency as a military kid, and my dad being engineering, I'm kind of process oriented, so I have a tendency to be kind of straightforward, I would say.
Yeah.
And that leadership style, particularly with the younger generation, is not always well received, and so I'm having to learn how to adapt my general personality and my way of running and leading to the new employees coming on board. And I've struggled with that leadership because I'm an entrepreneur, get it done. Like I shouldn't have to show you. I've already told you, just go get it done. You said you understood, get it done. And there's a lot more coaching and teaching. And so I'm trying to learn that. And to be honest, I don't remember that.
Is it
I'm
extreme
sorry.
ownership? Is
There
it
you
extreme
go.
ownership?
That's it.
Okay. How U.S. Navy SEALs lead and win.
There you go. Extreme
Awesome.
ownership. Awesome
Okay.
book. Awesome book.
I will add that to your show notes page because, again, it's good to get. And I like that you brought up the difference in the way generations receive guidance. And I think one of the biggest challenges for those of us in more mature generations, I'm talking boomers and Gen Xers particularly, is the way guidance is received, the way it's delivered and the way it's received has changed significantly. And there's definitely a barrier that you have to learn how to climb over. But it's not one-sided, okay? Like young people have to learn that life isn't always an app.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Or a video game. And I know that sounds very generalized and I don't mean to be flip about it. That's not my point. It's at some point, we all grow up, and I'm sure you can remember when you were a young man. When I was a teenager, I thought I was amazing and great. And, the older people knew nothing, right? That's just part of growing up. And then you quickly realize when you get out into the world, the world does not revolve around me. I have to show up to the world and for the world. And then maybe, if I'm lucky, it will respond. But there's been a whole generation of children who, unfortunately, have been raised with just snapping their finger and everybody jumps and tells them how great they are and how perfect they are. And you don't have to lift a finger and we'll still give you a reward. And that doesn't fly in the real world. It just doesn't.
I would love to go down this with you. I have this whole generation of selfie stick and, the power of what they call information because they found it on the internet, and the inability to really have life skills to solve a problem is scary for me. It's just absolutely scary. But, and I was talking to another business owner because we're always complaining, right, about the employees or the next generation or what's going on. And I said, you know what? To be honest, our parents said that about us.
Correct.
And their grandparents said it. So I agree. Yeah, people want to work home. Yeah, they're on their phones. Yeah. But you know what? We didn't have a computer in college. I graduated in 84 from high school. So this is kind of DOS, Fortran, right? Like writing some, basic, right? And there was a computer lab, but we're still writing papers on typewriter. And I was making fun of my boys. I said, the funny thing is, you guys, you make fun of me that way. And I'm telling you, your kids are going to laugh at you when you go, you had to type on a computer. Yep. Like we have AI now and we don't have to type. We just talk to it and it just translates everything for us. Like, you're so old, Dad. You had a computer you had to type, and it's
true.
Funny. It's true.
It's absolutely true. And again, we, those of us who didn't grow up with these apps and the internet, you and I we are the last generation who came of age without the internet.
Yep. Exactly.
Gen Xers, we came of age before the internet, and everybody else after us, that's all they've ever known. So it's not fair in a way to say, oh, this is bad. It's different. It's not bad. It's different. At the same time, I think we need, as multiple generations, how can we teach each other? Lots of, there's all the jokes of like the older folks go to the younger ones, how do I make this work? And they're just like, boop, 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 and it's done. And then what we need them to come to us and say and ask is, how do I look somebody in the eye without feeling like I'm going to completely melt? Because I don't know how to communicate face to face. All I know is how to text somebody. And I need to interview for a job, and I'm required, even if it's over Zoom, you have to show up to that. You can't hide.
Or our employees that say, well, I sent them an email and I said, he's 72. Would you please just call? Like, just stop telling me I sent them an email. Dude, they don't even read their emails. Like, they're our clients. Can you please? And they're like, oh, like, I'm like, you guys, I don't know how to explain it to you anymore. Our clients, our 60 and 70-year-olds are relationship based. They want to talk to you. The reason they're calling us was because we were referred by their service provider that they trust, who's been their CPA for 40 years. And that's the only one they're going to listen. They didn't Google Exit Consulting Group, who's going to help me. They didn't. You know who they do? The 60-year-olds call their CPA, or they ask their friend, or they talk to their attorney, or that's how they do it, because that's all we had. We didn't have the internet when we were looking for things. Mm-hmm. And we actually, the generation has loyalty. You guys don't have any loyalty. You're willing to take things come and go. Say, you're going to get me going down there. Don't get me. I'm going to get all fired up here, because it is a challenge to work with your clientele being older, and you're building a team behind you to support this growth. And the generational difference is fascinatingly amazing to me.
Yeah,
I'll leave it to that.
We can leave it at that. However, I will just plant a seed for you. I'm hoping that you're making notes, and because this could be something that another piece of value that you could add to the world, John, at some point, because there's a lot of people out there who are facing that same dilemma. And I think until we talk openly about it, first of all, acknowledge that it exists, clear the air and say it's nobody's fault. It's just a reality. So how do we work within the context of multiple generations all operating at the same time, coming from very different worldviews? And it can't just go one way. It can't go from the older to the younger. It's got to be like osmosis, back and forth across the membrane. Right. So I'm just going to plant that seed, because this has been fantastic, and we could have a completely different conversation around this. But I do want to have you leave Team PYP with one more thing, which is you come from obviously you coached your boys, and you're very much into athletics, and you mentioned Tom Brady and stuff. Who is your team, John? Who are you watching on either Saturday or Sunday?
Well, I'm a little, so I have to break my vulnerability card here. So now I understand the San Diego Chargers were thrown up to LA, right? So we now lost our San Diego Clippers to LA. Now we lost San Diego Chargers to LA. So, we don't have any professional sports in San Diego anymore. And I was a diehard for both of those. So, Kansas City has kind of smoked the Chargers for the last few years. So, Philly, I just want to go with Philly. Just because Kansas City has kind of smoked our team and kept us out. So I'm going to go with Philly.
All right. Well, you're making a prediction. This episode will air post Super Bowl 57. Right. So we'll see if you nailed it. I was rooting. I'm an Oregon Ducks fan, and Justin Herbert is amazing, and I love him.
There you go.
I was really hoping that they could advance, but wasn't meant to be this year. But
not this year.
Another year, maybe. Anyway, This has been fantastic. You added so much value to the Play Your Position podcast, Team PYP. I learned a lot today from you, John, and I love your passion and enthusiasm. And I wish you continued success as you, go through your transition and whatever's next for you. That's exciting.
I think if you're honest with yourself and you have the integrity to follow the path, I believe the path I am on is the right path. And so I appreciate you and appreciate what you do and appreciate your podcast. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Hey team, Mary Lou here. Who's number one in football changes from year to year.
fashion trends come and go, same with musical tastes. But leadership skills, they never go out of style. In fact, these days, leadership is an essential survival skill for a world that demands more from us than ever before. To succeed these days, you need to know how to show up for yourself so that you can then do the work you love with people you like the way you want. The Play Your Position Leadership Playbook helps you do this, and it's free. Go to pyppodcast.com to download your copy today. If being more successful this year, next year, in the 21st century is on your to-do list, get your copy of the Play Your Position Leadership Playbook now. pyppodcast.com. It's at the top of the page. You can't miss it. That's pyppodcast.com, and start being more of the leader you are meant to be today. This podcast was produced by Daniel Romeros. Show notes for this episode can be found over at pyppodcast.com. I'm Mary Lou Kaiser. Thanks for listening.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.